Hello again, everyone. This is Louis Setti, the Blue Ridge Reporter, speaking today, December 1, 2011, about a news report that appeared today talking about the announced retirement a few days earlier of longtime Representative in Congress Barney Frank. And as the article says, this Mr. Frank was the first self-proclaimed homosexual in Congress, a spokesman for gay rights, and that he was an ardent spokesman. And the tone of the article seems to imply that the writer admired him for that narrow proposition, his ardor in representing the homosexual position. The writer speaks about his friends from Harvard who had told him many years ago in 1980 that the then as yet to be elected Mr. Frank was quite a stupendously intelligent fellow, a person of good cheer, a wit. But then he goes on to say his friends from Harvard proved to be wrong. A question I would raise would be this: what if a person were stupendously intelligent and of good cheer and a wit? That is really not the essence of a political leader under our system of government. The basic point is, can a man who serves in the federal government keep his oath to abide by the Constitution? An issue which this gentleman, the writer, never mentions, which is significant for another point. The writer of the article is a self-professed conservative. And in fact, he is. It's not that he's not a conservative. He defines, as many would see it, what conservatism really is. It's essentially unprincipled. It's a position that is in many ways like the liberal position regarding many things, and principled only in their willingness to accept all the premises, or at least many of them, of the so-called liberal camp, but simply not want to take them as far as the liberals would take them, a point which this man makes in his article almost explicitly, and I'll get into that in a second. That's the danger of conservatism. Conservatism is essentially a defensive and then ultimately losing position, because they have no means by which to protect against the further onslaught of liberalism that moves them back further and further, and then they retreat to a new base position only to be forced back again. And I think I'll make that point when this writer spoke of Mr. Frank and his liberalism having become immoderate. It wasn't moderate liberalism, it was immoderate. And that it was extreme politics, and that extremist movements within the liberal ranks are sinking liberalism. You see, if you just take it too far, that's the bad thing about it. Not the premises of liberalism itself or themselves, at least as this writer would explain things according to this one article I've read by him. He said, quote, "The liberals always take liberalism too far." You see, it's the degree, not the principles of liberalism, which essentially is, as I've said before, a revolution against the Bible, the Christian order, the Constitution, government law, politics, economics, and the social order as defined by those things, you see? So now, he talks about here, this is this gentleman's conservative lament. He says, you know, the homosexuals, he said, have their rights now, but now they want to marry. He's kind of shocked. They want to marry, okay? And he also said that he's concerned about, they want to even be married in churches. And the gentleman's concerned about the churches now. He fears for the churches. Because he said, look what's happened in church-run hospitals refusing to do abortions, or in church-run adoption agencies treating homosexual couples different from heterosexual couples. And as he says in a quote, "I worry about liberalism again going too far." Now you see, that's conservatism. It's not biblical. And Christians should not have any dealings with conservatism. It is not a biblical basis. Ultimately, it is doomed to lead Christians, and ultimately Christians are doomed to be led into positions that are not justified by the Scriptures. In fact, and oftentimes not even justified by the constitutional provisions. But as long as you don't take them too far, then conservatism is fine indeed, because it is merely a gradation, a shading that is in some degree different from what liberalism is, but is not in fact in any way, shape, or form a biblical position, or even in a civil sense, a position that is faithful to the Constitution of the United States. In no place does this writer in the Washington Times say anything derogatory or critical about the behavior, the homosexual behavior. The Scriptures are quite clear. It's an abomination. The well-known report in the Scripture of what happened to Sodom and Gomorrah are known even by people who have never read the Scriptures. In fact, the very name of sodomy comes out of that report. And the Apostle Paul makes quite clear, even in the New Testament, not that it needs to be repeated, but as a fact in the New Testament, about the biblical position against homosexuality. That's not mentioned in here by this leading spokesman in the media for conservatism. He is a conservative. That is the problem. This is Louis Setti, the Blue Ridge Reporter.